Hi, everybody. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and we're going to do a little analysis here of the overnight GFS run, which was very interesting. And first, before we do that, I want to go back to yesterday's European, the day run, because this kind of indicated that we might go in this direction. Now, this is this weekend, no surprise, with this big, strong ridge that's going to mean for record highs. And then we get this weather system that moves on through here on Monday night with a strong cold front. And then you can see another system there getting ready coming out of the plains, and that lifts up to the western Great Lakes. And when it does that, forms a little vortex in eastern Canada, and you start to get this flow that comes down from northern Canada down up into the Great Lakes and into the northeast. Now, the European was decidedly colder than the model. The other differences are out in the west, because we have troughing that's in the southwest, a ridge that builds into the Canadian northwest, and then another deep trough that runs from the Aleutians, the northern Aleutians on southward, and then a big ridge that pops up along the dateline. Now I'm going to move this along here and show you that toward the end of the period, what you have is a jet here in the north that brings down some colder air. And then we have this cutoff high that forms in the Pacific Northwest. This whole look back through here is decidedly different from what we've seen for weeks now. Here's the split flow, weather systems kicking out, and there's one here in the southwest, and we have a west-southwest flow. It's cold in the sense that temperatures here would certainly get back to near normal in this type of scenario. Now, I'm going to jump to the GFS run from tonight. And I'm going to start it out at 144 hours. And we can see here, this is on next Wednesday, same principles happen with regards to what we're having this weekend, obviously, and then a cold front early next week. And then you get that little vortex that forms there in the northern stream, and we have this stronger southern system that's down in the southwest getting ready to get kicked along. And even though there's a southeast ridge that builds here, it doesn't build nearly like the other ridges have, because there's this upper low in eastern Canada that kind of holds the ridge back to some degree. And now that system comes out of the southwest and begins to lift up, and you have a little bit of energy in the north too that starts to get involved. And you can see it here as it translates over to the coastline, and then out it goes, of course. And now I want to show you what it does at the surface, because that is where we start to see something that might make a little more sense. And we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to change the region, so we'll go to the eastern U.S. so we can see just exactly what it's showing here. And I'm going to back it up a little bit. And from that system that comes out of the southwest, now here's this line, this blue line here. This essentially represents where the rain snow line might be. Okay, and we're going to move it along. And here comes a low that moves out of the Gulf and then runs up just to the west of the Appalachians, redevelops along the Carolinas, and you can see it actually is cold enough to produce an area of snow on the model. Central Pennsylvania, western New York, and then back over toward Ohio and Indiana. And then it transfers to the coastal low, and the coastal low moves out northeast. Now, the GFS would imply that it would probably not be cold enough here for anything other than rain. This is a literal interpretation. And again, this assumes that all of this is correct. There's a long way to go on this. But a lot of the longer range models were signaling that something might happen toward the end of next week. And I think the more important takeaway from all of this is the fact that we're seeing a definite change in the upper air that this model's been hinting at, back and forth, flipping back and forth. I'll go back to the North America view so that you can kind of see it in full view here. And we'll run it back just a little bit. And I just want you to watch a couple of things. First, you can watch what's going on across the United States with this weather system, and there it goes. It comes out and lifts up, and then you see what happens in Canada. It is a colder look. We still don't have a direct alleyway out of the Arctic, but there is a colder look. Another takeaway from this also is the fact that the pattern across the Arctic region is changing to some degree, as we do have a bit of an upper high now that sits over the eastern part of Russia that's kind of split the vortex away. We have one part of it that drops down into the Pacific west of the Aleutians, and Canada seems to be repairing itself. So there are things happening in the long scheme of things. We also have a little bit of blocking going on here with low just east of Newfoundland and probably going along or just north of 50 north here. 50 north, 50 west is the spot where you always look for it. And we have another upper air system that's coming down into the northwest. But this whole look here is a colder look overall. So we'll see if the European goes along further along with the similar idea. Again, very early in the game here, but it does look like there are things happening as we move through next week and start heading towards Christmas. And we'll of course update this with throughout during the day when the new models come out. And in the morning, I'll get a good look at the European and kind of reevaluate all of this. But at least it is something different, and it is something that will pique our interests over the coming few days at least.